few moments, the Colts have fired head coach Frank Reich following yesterday's 26-3 loss to the Patriots. Indianapolis just 3-5-1, despite having very high hopes for this team coming into the season. As you know, they sent quarterback Carson Wentz packing after a season. They brought in Matt Ryan. He only lasted 7 games. He was benched then in favor of Sam Ehlinger, and the losing continuing as Louis Riddick joins us throughout the next 2 hours. But first, Louis, what's the reaction to this news that you've just heard? A very popular coach in Frank Reich, really liked universally, but quarterback turnover, just one of the many problems that ensued during his tenure.
It's amazing. It's a very short fall, Hannah, from the top to the bottom, isn't it? And remember, at one time when Frank Reich left Philadelphia and Doug Peterson was there, still, many people thought Doug Peterson wasn't worth, his name plate on his door without Frank Reich being there. Now, all of a sudden, Frank Reich is being basically scapegoated for all the issues that plague this offense in Indianapolis, and has led them to some woeful performances where we all know that isn't really where it ends when you're talking about a team that has underperformed the way they have. You just break down this team, especially on the offensive side, and I've watched them a bunch, because I thought this team was really going to be in contention for, one, the AFC South crown and the AFC overall. It starts up front. This is a team that has the highest number of cap dollars allocated to the offensive line. They have just poured money into that offensive line with Braden Smith and Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly. They draft Bernard Ryman. I mean, there's just so many things that have gone wrong, starting there with the underperformance along that unit. The quarterback position really doesn't even need any discussion at this point, considering the kind of turnover they have had there, ever since Andrew Luck has left that organization, and they just have not been able to get it right. Jonathan Taylor, one of the most dynamic players in all of the NFL, has been on the shelf for a large part of this season, due to injury. There's just so many things that have conspired to have this whole thing start circling down the drain, that I think they're going to really need to do a real deep dive as to what has happened, specifically starting with up front on the offensive line, because everything from there has just had a trickle-down effect. That's not to say that Matt Ryan wasn't playing, did not, contribute to the downfall here, because he was a part of it. Not having Jonathan Taylor, that's a part of it. There's a lot of things that go into this. It doesn't just stop with Frank Reich, but I will say this. This, for me, easily is the most disappointing aspect of the 2022 season for me. I thought this team was primed and ready to make a run, and for it to, I don't want to say end this way because the season's not over yet, but for it to be trending in this direction with the firing of Frank Reich, that is just absolutely shocking. I would have lost a whole lot of money if you would have told me this is what was going to happen at the halfway point of the season.
Well, listen, there have been a lot of shocking things this season, but I'm with you on watching this team closely, calling one of their games. The lack of discipline on that offensive line, the highest paid offensive line, the penalties, and you're seeing quarterbacks who already aren't mobile running for their lives. So I do agree with you in terms of putting a lot of responsibility on that line. But let's go back a few years, because Josh McDaniels left this team hanging. Frank Reich basically comes in to rescue the situation. Andrew Luck retires weeks before the season. Jacoby Brissett becomes the starter. Then it's Phillip Rivers. Then it's Carson Wentz. And then it's Matt Ryan. So they're bringing in a lot of quarterbacks on the very, very last years of their career. And then this really strange benching of Matt Ryan and going with Sam Ehlinger. Where do you see this team organizationally going forward in terms of its philosophy? Because you have a lot of experience, not only playing, but also in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah, what you just laid out is really just a bunch of short-term fixes, and you wind up really asking yourself, how did they arrive at those decisions? When the power brokers got in the room, when ownership, general manager, head coach, offensive coordinator, or whoever else would be brought into that circle in order to really decide the most important position on the football team, where did everybody stand on this from a philosophical standpoint going forward? I mean, it's okay to maybe do that once, or maybe even twice, as far as trying to find a bridge guy that would then lead you down the road towards the long-term solution. But when you start making a habit of doing that, and year after year, that is the way in which you're trying to address that position, look, it's feast or famine. For every Tom Brady, meaning a guy who is like on the tail end of his career, but who can still conjure up, moments of greatness to the point where he can still win the Super Bowls. There's going to be flameouts. There's going to be people who just absolutely hit the wall on your watch. And when quarterbacks or any player at premium positions in particular hit the wall on your watch, it is usually brutal. And I mean brutal. It just all goes down from here, goes downhill from there. I've been a part of that kind of thing. And ultimately it winds up costing people jobs, just like it has today with Frank Reich.
Yeah, and let's not forget, they also fired their offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady, recently. They do have Gus Bradley on the staff as their defensive coordinator. As we know, he does have head coaching experience in the NFL, but so far the Colts have not named an interim coach. And ironically, they do take on